Let me ask you a question. What do you think the cost of memory is these days? Because 1 year ago, the cost of RAM, the thing that stores information in your computer, was about £50, which is pretty normal, right? But what do you think it is today? Well, you might be surprised to learn that in just the last 4 months, the price of RAM has increased by more than 4 times, and prices don't appear to be slowing down anytime soon. Unsurprisingly, that has made a lot of people very upset, while also making RAM producers and their shareholders very wealthy. And according to a number of recent reports, prices could keep climbing as gamers, data centers, phone makers, and PC hobbyists all compete for the surprisingly limited supply of memory. Because the truth is that the global supply of memory is controlled by just a handful of companies, and what they decide to do next could send prices even higher. And one of these companies only became independent again last year, which makes the timing of all of this very strange. Which got me wondering, what the hell is going on? So in this video, we're going to figure out why prices of RAM have skyrocketed, then we're going to figure out who the biggest producers of RAM actually are and what their production cycles look like, in the hopes of working out what prices might look like in the future. And then finally, we'll try to work out who the winners and losers are going to be, because I have a feeling there are going to be plenty of people who are very happy about this, and others that are very, very annoyed. So let's get started, shall we? What has happened so far? Since large language models became popular in 2022 with the release of ChatGPT, anything that helped build AI has basically sold like hotcakes. Chip makers like Nvidia, famous for building the state-of-the-art GPUs needed to run these fancy language models, saw the price of their flagship products skyrocket. Not long after that, all of their other GPUs were suddenly in massive demand too, which helped push their stock price up by more than 1,000% in just a few short years. Nvidia isn't the only business that saw success in the immediate aftermath of the AI boom. Contractors and subcontractors have been reporting immense demand for work on new data centers, while credit markets financing these projects have been calling them the next big thing. Meanwhile, tech giants like Meta, Google, Microsoft have all seen massive increases in both their stock prices and their revenue generation thanks to LLMs. Of course, none of this is news to you and I. We've all heard this story before. But in the background, waiting patiently for its moment in the spotlight, was a product that hardly anybody was talking about. Unlike the other stars of the AI boom, like GPUs, this piece of hardware was almost completely overlooked. While everyone was obsessing over new AI models and arguing about who won whatever benchmark was in vogue that week, companies like SanDisk were quietly building out the memory that AI would eventually depend on. And then suddenly, late last year, the entire tech world seemed to realize the same thing at exactly the same time. Wait a minute, we're gonna need a hell of a lot more of that. And just like that, the memory super cycle began. Now, this isn't the first time RAM has become the focal point of a tech boom. We only have to go back to 2018 when Bitcoin hit the mainstream to see the last period of massive demand. Although this time, calling it a super cycle might actually be an understatement. The enormous increase in demand happened all at once thanks to the capex spending announcements made at the end of 2025. From the start of June to the end of December 2025, there was a collective commitment to spend roughly $400 billion building and fitting out new data centers across America. And most of that spending commitment came from just 4 companies: Amazon, Microsoft, Meta, and Google. Oh, and by the way, if you're enjoying this video, please consider giving it a like and subscribing. It really helps me out a lot. Liking this video tells YouTube that it's worth sharing with more people, which helps me grow this community. And if you subscribe, you can be part of it right from the very beginning. Thanks for watching, and let's get back to it. Okay, so a lot of money is being spent building and fitting out new data centers. But why has memory become so important? Well, that's fortunately quite a simple question to answer for us. Without memory, AI just could not exist. Fundamentally, there are 2 types of memory that's crucial to AI: NAND and DRAM. NAND, or NAND, however you want to call it, short for not and, is a type of non-volatile flash memory that retains data without power, commonly used in SSDs, USBs, and smartphones for high-density, durable storage. Essentially, it's the reason why you're able to turn off your phone or your computer, boot it back up a few days later, and still find all those lovely photos and videos you took while you were drunk the other night. Brilliant, right? NAND is used by AI to learn. The reason why these chatbots are able to almost answer any question on any topic is simply because the models have learned from and stored billions of pages of text. NAND is where that text is stored. DRAM, or dynamic random access memory, is a type of volatile semiconductor memory used in computers to provide temporary, high-speed storage for data and program code. It's called dynamic because the tiny electrical charges storing data slowly leak away and must be refreshed thousands of times a second to keep the information intact. In AI systems, DRAM plays a critical role. Before a chatbot can even generate a response, the AI model needs extremely fast access to its parameters and intermediate calculations. These are stored in high-speed memory so the system can rapidly process the billions of operations required to produce each reply. Now, while for the sake of this video, we don't really need to know more than just that from a technical perspective, I always like to think of NAND as the pantry, where the ingredients are stored, and DRAM as the kitchen, where the cooking happens. When you think of it in those terms, it makes visualizing exactly what is happening under the hood a lot easier. So we understand that RAM is important, and we know how it works with AI models to produce the results we see in our interactions with it day to day. Which might have you wondering, who then produces this memory? Well, there's quite a mixture. In the NAND space, the big producers are Samsung, SK Hynix, Kioxia, SanDisk, and Micron Technologies. In total, global supply of NAND is approximately 2.1 billion terabytes of storage a year. Remember, that supply of memory was the amount that was being supplied to the global market before demand went insane. In fact, memory demand for long-term storage was split between 35% smartphones, 20% laptops and PCs, 15% data centers, 10% consumer electronics, and 5% Internet of Things. Now, obviously, I suspect that 15% attributed to data centers demand will look tiny in a few years. Meanwhile, DRAM demand looks very similar to NAND, although the top producers are somewhat different, with a few Chinese and Taiwanese businesses forming a large part of the 200 million terabytes of memory globally produced each year. What's worth knowing is that the current supply of memory is a function of the old estimate of demand, meaning that the amount of memory produced in any given year, as I mentioned earlier, was enough to suitably supply all of the gadgets, widgets, and things we want and need each year. This was before data centers came around and began buying everything up. Now, in order to begin meeting the new demand, companies like Samsung and SanDisk will need to begin ramping up their production immediately just to meet current demand for more and more memory. However, that's a lot easier said than done. It can cost up to $30 billion to build and set up a new memory fabricator site, and that time needed to get it fully operational could be up to 5 years, and in the end, that might only increase global supply by about 10 to 20%. Now, alternatively, existing suppliers could just expand their existing facilities for up to $1 billion in cost and wait up to 18 months for the work to be completed. However, once again, that will take time. And you have to remember, behind the scenes, when senior leaders of all these major companies are deciding how to invest, they'll be thinking, what if this new demand drops off and all of that capital expenditure spent building new plants was for nothing, and in actual fact it ends up oversupplying the market and reducing margins? Just think about that. Until that question is resolved, prices are going to have to change. Ultimately, with cyclical businesses, the function of price is the sum of supply and demand. Supply of memory is homogeneous. RAM is not like GPUs, where Nvidia can spend billions of dollars each year to research and produce the very best chips. Instead, the memory industry spends billions of dollars building capacity and managing supply in a market with fierce competition. The moment oversupply occurs, prices drop, margins thin, and businesses like SanDisk respond by slowing down production to increase prices. This exact thing happened in 2022. It's basic supply and demand economics. In most years, the likes of Samsung and SanDisk are price takers. The market dictates their price, but that has now changed. Finally, once again, memory producers are price makers. With such limited supply now that demand is far outstripping what can be produced in 1 year, companies like SanDisk are reporting record earnings. SanDisk, which was spun out by Western Digital at the beginning of 2025, has seen its revenue increase by 61% year over year, while its stock price has increased by more than 10x in less than 6 months. They're not the only ones to see massive booms. Micron Technologies and SK Hynix have also seen large increases in their stock price and are also guiding massive revenue growth in the coming year. So what's the price then? I asked you at the start of the video, how much do you think RAM prices have increased recently? And the answer to that is a lot. In October 2024, the price of DDR4 3200 2x 8GB sticks of RAM, the type of RAM more commonly used in well-built PC gaming setups, cost around $50. Today, the exact same stick of memory costs $150. You can check this for yourself. Just Google DDR4 2x 8GB in Amazon and you won't find many options below £130, which is about $150. That is a 3 times increase in a year and a half. But price increases are harsher elsewhere. DDR4 2x 32GB of RAM jumped from about $100 a stick in October to $600 now. incredible. DDR5, first produced in 2021, and the fastest and most impressive memory you can get in the market at the moment, has risen even further than that. 2 times 32 gigabytes have gone from $200 to $1,000. It's crazy. And if you look at all these price charts, you can see one pattern. October 2025, when all the announcements about the capital expenditure of those big tech firms came out, the prices begin to skyrocket. NAND prices are increasing at a similar rate, about 100% increases from Q4 to Q1 2026. So when will things begin to stabilize? Well, if you looked at those charts I showed you earlier, you can see things begin to flatline, which gives us some hope that prices have reached equilibrium between demand and supply. But that might just be a bit of copium. TrendForce originally predicted increases of about 55 to 60% for DRAM and NAND for the first quarter of the year, but eventually revised those estimates up to 90 to 95%. Now, consensus estimates from the big producers are approximately 50 to 100% year on year, while PC hobbyists are expecting a further 70% increase in Q2 of 2026. Now, all of that is to say that people, businesses, and journalists do not see any end in sight, despite the fact flatlining in prices in recent months has occurred. Ultimately, there are only going to be a few winners and losers in this chaos. Consumers used to a certain price phone or computer will experience some form of price increase. The current price of memory in the build of a phone is about $50, which is about 10 to 20% of the cost of a smartphone. Given that businesses like Apple are driven by quarterly earnings growth and net margin expansion, I have a gut feeling that these companies are unlikely to absorb those price increases and are instead going to just pass them on to the consumer. Already, hobbyist computer makers have begun experiencing this pain. First, it came through the extortionate prices of GPUs that rose by more than 50%. Now they're facing the same cost pressure with their RAM. At the time frame needed to increase capacity in the years, not months, it's very possible that prices keep increasing for a while until it just becomes completely unviable to buy new hardware. Now the winners, that's an easy one. The shareholders of the manufacturers. Companies like SanDisk are, as we already know, generating record-breaking revenue and enormous profit margins. The level of profitability these businesses have seen overnight is quite frankly insane. Before all this happened, SanDisk was loss-making. Now they're generating $3 billion of revenue a quarter and trading at today's price of 8 times 2027 EPS. But that's the catch. How long will they be winners for? While consumers reel in the price frenzy, they will also be the end beneficiary. Like all cyclical businesses, capacity will increase, the market will be flooded, and prices will drop, which leaves perfectly good hardware on sale at enormous discounts. It's just a matter of when, not if. So there we have it. What do you think of the memory crisis at the moment? Have you been directly affected? Were you planning on upgrading your computer but in the end decided not to because prices were going through the roof? Or did you invest in some of these stocks? How did it go? Let me know in the comment section below. If you want more videos about economics of business and finance, make sure to subscribe and join this community. I'll see you in the next video. Bye for now.